Lesson 2, Unit 1. Scope Management. Scope management includes the processes involved in defining and controlling all the work required to deliver the project successfully. These are the 4 steps needed to manage the scope. You need to plan the scope and define all the work to complete the project. Then, you need to assign the scope work to your team and assign responsibilities to complete the work on all the deliverables. Then you need to verify the scope to ensure it follows the plan and adapt the scope plan if there are any changes or opportunities to improve the project for the next cycle. One of the tools used in defining, organizing, and managing project scope is called the WBS, or the Work Breakdown Structure. It is a technique that helps you break down the project into different components so that you can have a better idea of all the work that needs to be done. In this example, you can see that the goal of the project, which is at the level of impact, can be broken down into a second level, which are the outcomes of the project, which are then broken down into different outputs. And then at the lower level are all the activities. The WES is a tool that helps you define and identify all the work that you are going to do in the project. It is also a tool that helps you identify and monitor your project, and it makes progress in its completion. Once you complete all the activities, these activities are contributing to the delivery of outputs, and the output will contribute to the achievement of outcomes, and the outcomes contribute to reach the project goal. A typical WBS will have 4 levels. If more detail is needed, you can break down the 4th level into tasks. A WBS includes all the work you need to do in order to achieve the goal. The WBS can be presented in different formats. One format is to have the WBS codes and the description for each element. This is a useful format that you can develop using a spreadsheet. Note that each element of the WBS has a unique code. This helps avoid the duplication of elements in a WBS. This table will be the basis to develop the project schedule and the project budget. Another tool used in the scope management is the project logical framework. This is a 4x4 matrix that contains information of objectives, indicators, means of verification, and risk or assumptions. The matrix is developed during the design of the project and is part of the donor proposal. The Logframe describes the temporal logic model, or hierarchy of hypotheses that sustain the structure and order of the intervention. The Logframe is presented in a 4x4 matrix. There is a vertical logic that follows the structure of the WBS. It has the goal, then you have the level of outcome, then the outputs, and then the activities needed to produce the outputs that will result in outcome and will achieve the goal. In the next column is the objectively verified indicators. For each one of those levels, there are impact indicators, outcome indicators, output indicators, and even activity indicators. Indicators are used to show the presence or state of a situation or condition, such as access to health facilities, access to drinking water, and student enrollment. An indicator is a quantitative or qualitative metric that provides information to monitor performance, measure achievement, and determine accountability. In the next column are the means of verification, which is the source of the information for the measurements of the indicators. Those sources need to be reliable, simple, accurate, have no bias, and be cost-effective. Sources define the places where the project will collect the data. The last column in the matrix is the column for the risk and assumptions. Risk are all the events might have a negative impact on the project. Assumptions are the favorable conditions necessary for the project to succeed. They help understand if there will be any changes in risk, opportunities, the environment, other conditions, and expectations the stakeholders have about the project. The last column also helps validate an important element of the logical framework, known as the horizontal logic or temporal logic, and it runs through the matrix. This takes the form of a series of connected propositions. If the planned activities are implemented and the assumptions hold, then the outputs will be achieved. If the outputs are delivered and the assumptions hold, then the outcomes will be achieved. If the outcomes are achieved and the assumptions hold, then the project will contribute to the final goal. Assumptions hold the logic of the project. Any change in assumption puts the project at risk. If the assumption at the output level changes, the project will not be able to achieve the outcome. It is important to monitor assumptions on a regular basis, especially in the early stages of the project. Here are some recommendations to help you manage a project scope. Manage your scope changes. It is very easy for little things to be added up, and if they are not in control, they can create problems such as scope creep. Balance the constraints. This means that if you're adding a scope, look at what's going to be impact on the other constraints on your schedule, budget, and quality. Avoid unnecessary scope changes. In many cases, you don't need to add more scope just because there is a request for it. Any change in scope should be adding value to the project and contributing to its success. Monitor indicators. These are the metrics that will help you know whether or not the project is completing the activities, delivering all the outputs and outcomes as planned.